Does anybody have other questions about sort of the logistics of focus groups? Like, is there anything that you feel that it's maybe held you back or anything like that? We've covered where to find the people, how to kind of collect their information, how to then reach out to them to set it up. Actually, and the next one's going to kind of slide into some of the nuts and bolts of of running it. But getting to the point that the people actually show up. Does anybody have any questions about any of that? All right. I think what I did in my office, so I used to do it myself a lot, and we're all so freaking busy, that can be a hurdle in and of itself. If you're trying to get the people and coordinate with them and write back. So I actually created a procedure. I wrote it all down, step by step process, and again I can share it with any of you, and then you can give it to your assistants, and it worked like a charm. I just laid out step by step, it's on a document, and I assigned one of the secretaries in my office, you're going to be the focus group person, and so Amy, I'm going to tell you I want to do a focus group on next Wednesday. I want 6 people, and I don't want any of the people in the notes that are noted to be stinkers. Don't invite them, or I'm going to be really annoyed. And then it lays out all the stuff. They set the video camera up. They get the chips, the drinks, all that different stuff, so that I'm not wasting time, carrying bins of stuff and setting up my video camera and all that different stuff. So that's just a great way to do it. So again, in that Dropbox link I can make available to any of you, I'll put that procedure in there that then you can just take and give to your person, and it just makes it so much easier to do, okay? So, some rules of thumb. And again, we've talked a lot about this. Less participants, okay, I can't stress that enough. Less is more. You're paying each person, okay, and I didn't really specify this earlier, but I should now. I think I've made reference to it. I typically do a 2-hour focus group. That's what I schedule them for. And I usually do mine at night, 5:30 to 7:30, okay? And I pay them $25 per hour, but it's $50 cash. That's what I pay them, okay? And because I'm paying them that much money, it just doesn't do me any good to have 12 people there. Okay, the money's gone up. Now I've spent a lot more on it, and just by the sheer number of people and the amount of limited time that I have, I am not going to be able to squeeze the orange of each of those people the same way I would if it was fewer people. So I much more advocate, well, and I'll get to the point I'm going to get to, talk less, and this will be an issue we'll discuss even more later. You are not there, nobody wants to hear your voice. You don't want to do the video and 90% of it is you talking. You want 90% of it to be the participants talking. That's where you get the information. That's where you get everything that's coming out of there, that's in their brain, that's going to help your case. I guess I missed the point I'm going to make, but we'll get there. And then I do the mixed response formats. So most often when I do a focus group, I'm doing a combination of 3 different types of response getting from them. I do a written portion, so I do a questionnaire. So I get their independent private thoughts written on paper. Then I'll oftentimes have them do a free discussion. So I'll give them a question. Was Walmart negligent? I want you to all come up with a consensus on that, explain why you feel the way you do about it, go around, say how you feel and your reasons for the way you feel, and then get to a majority, 5 of 6 or 7 of 8 or whatever. And then I say, and when you're done, when you feel like you've maximized that, you've gotten the final answer, come out in the hall and get me. I go in and then I do my focused discussion on it, where I've got prepared issues on that issue, prepared questions that I want to explore with these people. And that's where I get, I usually take a temperature at the beginning. So what did you come up with? Who wants to put out there the top argument for why you selected that? Now I kind of have the consensus of what they came to and why they came to it, so I know as I go through my questioning later, I can work with that. I can push back on it a little bit, or I can explore it further, the real deep reasons why that was their consensus reason. Okay, so as a facilitator, all right, you're going to get to a point, and where you can get, I believe, the best and the most value out of a focus group is through your focus-led discussion. But it's tough. But generally speaking, you want to be as neutral seeming as possible, okay? And so you want your fact pattern, if you're going to do facts of the case, you want it to be as neutral as possible. And if anything, you probably, because this will make it more neutral because you're all so jaded, we're all so biased towards our case, you want it to be a little, whatever issue or whatever fact pattern you do, if anything, leaning more towards the other side. So if you're on the defense, you want to make it more plaintiff-y. If you're on the plaintiff side, you want to kind of make it a little more defense-oriented to ensure that the facts that you're presenting these people are even-handed and not slanted in your favor. And you as the focus group person, is, at least initially, always at the beginning, it can kind of change as the focus group goes on, you want to be neutral. I don't have a dog in this fight, okay? I want to hear what you have to say. Nobody cares what I have to say about this case, okay? This goes to the question before that was asked. Neutral environment, okay? Generally speaking, if you can, you don't want them to know that if you're doing it for one of your cases, that it's your case, okay? If in the environment, if you can do it in a different place that's not your office. I have the good fortune that in this big building we work in, 8th floor, I can rent out a room for the evening that's costs basically nothing. It's totally benign. Nobody knows who it's affiliated with or anything like that. They just go to the 8th floor of the Gulf Tower and report to the grant room. And that's it. If you can do that, great. But do not let, I don't have a neutral room, stop you from doing focus groups. Don't let anything that I suggest in the course of the CLE stop you from doing focus groups, okay? If you only have an office or a board conference room in your office to do it, fine. Just because it's still going to be better, even if you tell them, hey, this is my firm, it's my case, I still believe that what you'll get is better than not doing a focus group at all. My 2 cents. You want to be upbeat. You want to have a good time, okay? When I used to do focus groups at the beginning, I thought it was like this scientific experiment and I had to be very serious and it's a focus group and don't talk with anybody and, I just cringed thinking about the way that I did it. What I realized over time is that you want people to have a good time, like at the beginning when I give my spiel, it's like, you have a job to do, this is super important, all this sort of stuff, but we're going to have a good time tonight, right? I do a little rah-rah thing, be silly, I make fun of myself, okay? You want people having a good time, because if they're having a good time, they feel good, they can share, this is how I feel, and, they can laugh off if somebody else totally disagrees with them, and they can still share, their feelings. Quick side point, I have yet to do this, I don't think I probably ever will. It maybe not a focus group goes by where someone doesn't say, you should serve alcohol, then you'd really hear what we have to say. And boy, oh boy, I swear, I think about that often. I'm like, I really would. They'd really be brutally honest if they had a couple of drinks in them. But I think there might be some liability issues there, so haven't tried it yet. But I really can't stress that one enough. Have a good time with it. You have a good time with it. And I think, and that's kind of the beauty of focus groups, I think that there are so many sort of collateral benefits from them. And one of them is, how frequently do we get to talk and interact with groups of people that are sort of like the juries that we might deal with? You don't try cases very often. Most of us don't these days. And so we don't get to interact with a group of people and just that level of comfort, that level of interacting with them. When you do focus groups semi-frequently, you just kind of naturally grow to be more comfortable in those environments. And I think that helps when you get to trial, when we don't try cases as frequently, to be more comfortable, to be able to make light of situations, to self-deprecate to a degree that kind of, adds to your credibility, that shows your humanness. And so I think the focus groups, by having that mentality, we're here, we're having a good time, we're having a great time, this is only going to help you throughout the course of your trial practice. And again, you want it to be a safe space. I literally say to them, like, I'm giving you all a big, group hug, even though I'm not going to physically come and get you. But we're all having a good time. We're all people from this community. You've never met this person or that person, but I'm going to predict to you that, they care about you. They care about your opinion. I care about your opinion. Like, we're going to have a fun time tonight. You want it to be a safe space, because then they feel comfortable that they can share their opinions. Because people come in, especially, go ahead.
You have an icebreaker. I don't want to put it, but I mean, at least have people introduce themselves and tell, or do you keep it as anonymous as?
Oh no! It's not anonymous at all. Once they're there, everybody. Yeah, we definitely. You're Phil, you're Sally, and everybody say hi to each other. Like I do that a little bit, but also the icebreaker is, just being kind of silly with them, and that pick people out, and you're going to tell me what you think, right? And yeah, I will, and that is the way that I do it. But I honestly think, as long as you're having a good time with it, I think an icebreaker would be great. I think if you did it and it was just totally painful icebreaker, then people would be like, oh, I think the most important thing is that you kind of create the atmosphere. And that's one of the best things that you, meaning you as the facilitator of the focus group, can really, get people to feel comfortable, is if you're comfortable. And you're not, because they also know you're probably a lawyer, and maybe they're a little afraid of you, or they think it's like this serious thing. It's like, let's have a good time. Oftentimes, because I'm just racing around, I will have my suit on. But I think if you can do it without a suit, and you can just kind of just be in regular clothes like they are, it's only going to help kind of the environment of the situation. Because when you have the suit on, you look kind of formal and it looks serious, and it's maybe that much a little bit harder to get people to buy into, it's okay, this is a safe space, I can share my thoughts and no one's going to yell at me or object or something like that. So, all right, so I was just talking with Larry about this in and I meant to put this slide later on because it's sort of out of order right now, but devil's advocate, all right? When you do a focus group, okay, and you get to the part of having a group discussion, all right? So we just talked about the fact, have them do questionnaires, and guess what I'm reading when they're deliberating? Their questionnaires. I gather them up, and I read through them, and that gives me a sense of where people are, okay? They do their deliberation, and then I come in ultimately, and I'm doing my focused discussion with them. You do not want to come out of the box as devil's advocate, because what you're going to come out as is jerky lawyer guy that's just disagreeing with people or trying to, railroad his or her opinion down my throat. And then people just in general, they don't like that. So, but I also used to not really do devil's advocate because I was so afraid of that exact concept. I didn't want to turn people off. I didn't want them to just start saying, yeah, we agree with you, just shut up, okay? So, and what I would do is I would just, whatever they say, just leave it, and I got my information. Over the last couple of years, what I've found is tremendously important to really get the most value out of your focus groups is that when you come in to do the focus-led discussion, all right, get a sense of where people are and why they're there. Find out, take that temperature. Okay, you were for the plaintiff or you were for the defendant, and what was the kind of overarching reason why? And then you explore neutrally the questions that you had. But towards the end, okay, once you have that continued rapport with everybody, you need to devil's advocate the consensus thoughts. And the reason you need to do that is because you need to really get a sense of how firmly those are held by everybody. Is this an absolute concept, or are there good arguments, are there good counter arguments that can shift them, that it can be changed, okay? That good lawyering, good persuasion, etc. can change that. Because you don't, again, it's all helpful, but it can also be problematic if you go and you do a focus group and they concluded one way or the other, and you just take it as gospel. Well, that's the way that's it. That's the ironclad opinion. When, if you push them if you counterpointed them, you counter-argued on them, and you saw that they could move, you realized, okay, this is a malleable opinion here. This is not necessarily set in stone. We may be able to do something with this. Okay, we may be able to move that, or the defense may be able to move that opinion that was in my favor. Okay, so I think it's really important at the end. Okay, you don't want to do it at the beginning, but as you kind of transition through your discussion, you really need to try to devil's advocate the core issues of the focus group. Okay, so nuts and bolts of focus groups. That's why I'm jumping a little bit out of order on the way all this stuff works. How you set the room up, okay? It doesn't really matter, but generally speaking, you kind of want the people somewhat close together just for practical purposes of being able to fit them on your videotape. So many times, there's like, somebody making great points and they were cut off on my video. I'm like, oh, so it doesn't really matter whether you do seated around a circle or you seat them around a table. You just want it to be in some kind of comfortable, group setting where A, people can easily hear each other, B, you can kind of videotape everybody as best as possible. You can hear everybody on the videotape, that kind of thing. So, not a massive conference table is perfectly good in your office, potentially. Or if get a bunch of chairs, just set them up all closely together. You sit in the middle, we're all in the same circle, we're all in the same group kind of thing. I tell people you are going to get turned away if you show up late to my focus group. I put that right in the email, okay, when they're finally invited. Because there's nothing more annoying, and I know people have stuff and things happen, but you're 20 minutes into the focus group and you've already read the fact pattern, you're on to the next thing, and then somebody shows up, hey, sorry, I got stuck in traffic kind of thing, and you're like, well, what the heck am I supposed to do with this person now? So I write right in the invitation, if you're more than 5 minutes late, you're getting turned away. Sorry, but we just can't do it, because it's happened to me too many times. It's incredibly disruptive, and it's just a real disaster. So I really recommend that you tell people explicitly at the beginning, like I put it in like capital letters now on the final invite, you are going to get turned away if you're late. No pad and pens. You want that. I mean, you want people to be able to keep, track of the facts, especially if you've had any kind of, medical conditions or dates and times, or, there's significant names of people like that. You want to be able to, to have them be able to keep track of that stuff, and so that they can go back and use their points that they made during deliberations. They've got that reference point. Oh no, he said this, he said that. Some people say, and the focus groupers always ask me this, like, do you want all of our notes afterwards? And I personally am not sitting there and going back, like, seeing what notes people wrote. But I think some people think that's important. I personally don't, and I do not. I just have them tear them off and throw them hand them to me, and then I throw them in the garbage. But that's not particularly important. And food, okay, food and drinks. I think it's really important to not only pay them, but make sure again that they're as comfortable as possible, and tell people, give them certainty. There's a bathroom right outside the door. I know we're gonna, the first part's gonna be like 20 minutes, and then if you need to go pee or whatever, then go use the bathroom. Please wait until I finish the fact pattern until you go to the bathroom, and they're comfortable with their drinks and their potato chips or whatever you choose to do. But again, that's just a part of like giving them a nice, fun, comfortable environment to participate in. So let me see, which one is this? Okay, before I get to that, so just kind of practically speaking on the procedure. So I have my assistant set the whole room up for me ahead of time. So focus group's going to be at 5:30. At 5 o'clock, I have this big plastic bin with all the notepads, with all the pens. She goes down to the room, sets them all out, then nicely sets up the food and the drinks where the people come in. So the room is set up. When I used to shoot off of something other than this thing in my phone, they would set up the video camera. If I'm going to do a PowerPoint presentation or show testimony, etc., they go down, they set up the computer. But the idea being that somebody else in your office, if you have that support, is doing that. Because it's just one less thing to think about. It's just one more way to make it easier for you to go and do a focus group, so you're not, doing all the logistical stuff ahead of time. It makes a big difference. I know that having that procedure and being able to delegate to somebody else in my office to set all this up has really increased my frequency of focus groups, because it's just that much easier. I know I can just say, I want a focus group on this day, and it's going to happen. It's going to be all set up, and as long as I do my preparation ahead of time, we're going to be good to go. Okay, so let's talk about some keys to success of focus groups. Again, I'm telling you, prepare yourself. If you've never done them yourself, just prepare yourself that you're going to suck it up the first time you do it, okay? And it's going to be super awkward, you know, and you're going to be nervous, and they're going to sense that you're nervous, and it's not going to be as good as it will get, but you're still going to get great stuff out of the first one you do, even if you don't do it very well. You're going to get tons of great information out of the first focus group that you do. That said, there's a couple things to kind of keep in mind that will sort of off the bat help you do a better focus group. Things I wish I had been told and was more aware of when I started doing them myself. So this is one of the most critical things about doing a good focus group is what are you doing, okay? And I think the worst focus groups that I do are, like I talked about before, when I didn't prepare as much as I should have, and I go in and I'm just kind of shooting from the hip on a case. And it just, you know, it just doesn't go well, because I didn't know what was I trying to accomplish? What was the issue? And then what were the questions that I wanted to really understand and find out? So you need to think, you know, once you schedule a focus group, why am I doing it? Okay? And I think a good way to, initially when you approach doing focus groups, is start with, I'm just going to do a narrative one. I'm just going to read them the basic facts of the case, and that's how this focus group's going to do. Once you get the issues of importance that come out from that, or the things that people want to know that maybe you can answer, you do another focus group, and you focus on those issues that came up. Really drill into those particular issues on the second group. But the idea behind all of them is you knew what your purpose was. So you knew on the first one, I'm going to do just an overview of the case and find out how it strikes people generally, what questions they have, etc. That's going to then help me narrow down some of the key issues that I need to focus on. And then you can do a second focus group, you know, really directed at those particular issues. But if you don't know what your purpose is, if you don't know why you're doing the focus group, it's just not going to be nearly as good and valuable and return the results it otherwise could. This goes to a point we talked before. This focus groups are not about validating your take on the case. They're not about validating that your case is awesome and you're going to win and it's great and that sort of thing. That is really maybe one of the most poisonous things you could do in a focus group, is to try to win it. And have people come back and say, oh, you got a great case, you know, it's really good, you know, we really find for them. It's not about validation, it's about discovering true issues, to really understand how people think about the case, which goes into, before your focus group, you have to prepare yourself. You have to prepare yourself that you're going to hear really troubling things about your case if you're doing it right. I mean, it can be really upsetting to hear people eviscerate this case that you spent so much time and work so hard on and care so much about, and they're just shredding it. You have to tell yourself that that's going to be the best stuff I can get. And whenever I hear somebody tell me, you know, this is why, you know, medical malpractice lawsuits and the lawyers that file them are such pieces of garbage because of this point and that point, you're like, thank you, give me more of that. Why is that? Why is that? But if you don't, and you go in there, when you do your focus-led discussion, it's going to you're going to start fighting with people. You're going to start doing a bad job because you're going to be so hurt personally about your case. You're going to be annoyed at those people. You're going to be mad at them, and you have to prepare yourself before you even do it. That I'm probably going to hear some really upsetting stuff about my focus group. And Tim, right? Tim and I were talking a little bit ago that. If it's such a personal case, if you know this case is just one of those ones that really, it's one of those cases, it's the one that you dream about and you bug everybody about, and you're so tied to it, you may want to ask one of your friends to run the focus group for you. And certainly if you're going to do a fact pattern, run it by other people before you show it, because you're probably so biased you don't even realize it. And you're probably so tied in, it's almost too painful for you to hear, and take in a good way the brutal truth. This is what you want in a focus group, okay? Generally speaking, you want them. I mean, I'm very nervous when I do a focus group and the people are for my case. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm like, what am I missing here? Why do they like my case right now? Because you really want to help identify and have them poop on your case as much as possible. Because then you take that and that's going to only make you do a better job with it. So if you do a focus group and everybody comes back and says, oh, fantastic case, I love it. The reason you're probably doing the focus group, especially if you haven't done it before, is because it's kind of that important case and it's got some crazy issues to it, and they all come back and they're for you. Chances are you may have contaminated the water of the case a little bit. And this just goes to that same thing, that we just have, we're blind to the aspects of our case, and that's one of the best parts of focus groups, is that they, kind of take the cover off of our eyes and help us see the reality and the areas that we're just not covering. We don't see the problems, etc. And if you have that, again, if you have that, ask for help. Okay, I mean, ask me. Shoot me an email and say, what do you think about this fact pattern? This case is super important to me. I'll look at it. I'll tell you, I don't know anything about this case, but it sure seems like you're kind of, what about this, what about that? You might want to include this idea. You might want to take that one out because you don't know that's going to get in there. Or just to a friend. Does this seem even-handed? Does this seem, or is this too my way? And sometimes you might go too far the other way. They might say, I think you're leaning a little too much to the defense. Give yourself a chance. But ask for help. It's always a good idea. And the big thing, again, going with that 90-10 idea, 90% of a focus group should be, at least the discussion when you're in there should be them talking. And very little of it should be you talking. Ask a question, you're there to facilitate, you're there to get crosstalk between the people. Okay, what do you think about that? Okay, you have this opinion, I want you to devil's advocate them. I want you to come up with the best argument for why they're wrong or why they should come over to your side of the issue. And listen during the course of the project. Listen closely. And afterwards, after you videotaped it, because we can only listen so well, you want to go back and watch it and take detailed notes, listening to every little thing that was said, the way people were reacting to the different things that were said. So listen closely, which again, another collateral benefit of focus groups. It helps you listen at trial, it helps you listen at depositions more closely. Okay, so this is an actual clip from a focus group that I did. And by way of background, I sort of thought that this case was more valuable than it turned out to be. And it was a class action, and a bunch of these people had colonoscopies and endoscopies with these scopes. And there was a lot of people, and then they got a letter that said, oh, by the way, we didn't sterilize that scope that was on you, and there's a wee tiny possibility that you might have gotten HIV or hepatitis, and you should go get these blood tests just to make sure. Right, we talked to a bunch of people, there's nothing to worry about, but you should probably do 2 of these tests, okay? And nobody got it, okay? So it was a class action. It was not about somebody actually got one of the horrible diseases. They just had this kind of disturbing thing happen. And I thought that had some value to it, and then I did a photo.
So maybe if it's like, and now, I don't want to still just hand out money to everyone because they could have gotten sick.
No, definitely.
But I think it's almost like they picked her as like the woe is me, she's a grandma and this and that. And I said, maybe if I was a bleeding heart, I would have felt worse, but not really. To just say, oh, I got pricked by a needle, and I don't know, I just struggle to give someone money just because, I mean, I hate to say it, yes, she could have had something tragic happen, that I would have given her the world.
Right.
But she didn't, and none of them did, so
Well, let me ask
it's
you-
just a terrible mistake.
If she'd been so distraught that she became like physically ill, like,
Yeah.
you know, or something, or had to be
Mentally.
put on like anxiety medication,
That might be a different story.
maybe, but none of that was described. It was
Right.
just the only pain and suffering was the blood draw.
Well, let me, go
I
ahead.
think that even if something doesn't happen, like you want to somehow punish them to disincentivize being careless in this type of procedure. You can't just say like, oh, the FDA is gonna do that, so let's not worry about her. I mean, she's essentially like going through the effort of doing this, presumably. I mean, like, I just, you really think she's gonna get money? I don't know. Whatever her intention is, I don't think it really matters. I think there's got to be some like, hey, like, clean your stuff, because the next time somebody with HIV could be on this, and then it could be an even bigger problem. So like, for going forward, we're going to place more emphasis on this so that it doesn't happen in a
I just
serious
feel like
case.
she's at more risk shaking people's hand than she was from anything that was going on with this. Like, I mean, she didn't get sick. Like, she didn't get sick. Nobody got sick. Like,
Well, you don't have to wait for the first kid to like chop off their finger doing factory work either. Like, you know, you do this kind of thing so that going forward standards are raised and that like nothing
yeah,
does
but-
happen.
but a
That's
kid
what,
can
like,
still
regulation,
chop off
I
their
guess,
finger
is about,
if
and
you
it's
do
essentially
these
just private
things.
regulation.
No, but and you jumped basically to the point that I was going to play, you know, the kind of devil's advocate with the group of, if this happens, and it seems that everybody agreed that there was negligence here, it was pretty overt mistakes that were made here. If that happens, and then, you know, somebody gets this kind of letter, should just nothing be done?
well, that's why we were wondering about fines.
But
because
this isn't, we're not talking about fines, we're in a lawsuit, this
But
is a civil
nothing happened to
suit.
them, so there's nothing to, like, they got pricked with a needle, like, there's nothing else
Yeah.
you can do for them.
I understand that, but is there no, but it's not, I'm
Money's not gonna
talking.
make the worry go away.
No, but to the point that was just being made over here, the idea is that there's, you know, you want disincentivized carelessness, or it's, the point is to deter this kind of behavior in the future so that something worse doesn't happen.
I think for me, like, to your point, the thing for me is I want to see whatever money came from the center go towards, you know, continuing to enforce regulations, enforce
Yeah.
fines, enforce controls.
Okay.
Make sure that doctors are, like,
Doing what
have
they're supposed
procedures
to.
and that they're following them.
You'd like to see if there was money awarded that it goes to something productive. Instead of
Yeah.
someone's pocket.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's what's
Giving-
not sitting right with me.
Giving money to the,
that have nothing
the,
wrong.
you know, the victims doesn't raise standards. It
Yeah.
doesn't change anything. Like,
No, I think it does.
Just handing
I
them
think
money.
because if you win this kind of suit and then she tells all her family and then everyone hears like, oh, if you're paying attention to like
She's gonna
malpractice
have
somewhere
better
and then you do a lawsuit, then you're essentially like societalizing regulation.
But
Right.
you're not-
Everyone's
you're not
like
going
more
with
like,
that
oh, if I'm
law.
watching out, then like maybe I can, you know, make money off of it, and you're financially incentivizing for people to watch out.
Except
what's
that
going
we
around
all
and what in their
unanimously
life.
agreed that she should get very little to nothing.
Exactly.
I agree with
Devil's
you.
advocate.
I think it's a good thing, but
Yeah.
we kind of,
I don't see how just giving people money raises anything.
Well, but on the
I'm
flip
not
side,
going-
yeah, Mike, you've been wanting to
It
say
changes, okay. I am more inclined to give everyone money and not like just her money. If it's just her getting money, I don't think it's right for some reason. Because no one had anything happen to them, why should she just get this money? But if everyone's getting the money, I'm more inclined to give them money.
So you could see that there's just a lot of really great stuff that came out of that. I mean, just in that little tiny clip, okay? You have this guy with the glasses who's like, you know, he's got all these amazing lines, disincentivizing recklessness, and he had like so many I went back and listened to. I was like, oh, I love this stuff that he's given. And then you had, but clearly there was the sentiment of this woman and the woman in the back and this young lady over here. They were like, yeah, all that, but it's not worth anything. This isn't worth anything. And that was a lot of the consensus of it, but then out of nowhere, you get this guy, and it turned out a lot of people, as we started to push the issue, sort of agreed, if I knew on a class basis that everybody's going to get something, not just this one lady in this one individual case, it would make me more inclined to give money. Now, we wound up settling this case because it seemed like there's a lot of people that didn't want to give anything on that case. But you can see how you can look and find those arguments, the ones that, you know, start to gain consensus. I never in a million years would have thought about the idea of if it was for a class as opposed to this individual. And my client, you couldn't design a better plaintiff. Yes, sir.
I didn't mean to interrupt because you were on a roll, but when you saw the video of this, and like you said, there were these takeaways, there were buzz phrases, things that stuck with you. Were you tempted to say, you know what, I got to do another focus group? Or did you just rely upon this one focus group?
I did more.
The ultimate resolution was a settlement.
I did more.
Another one or did one?
I did more than this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did the second one turn out significantly different?
I mean, what I found, I mean, I settled it not anywhere near what I thought I was going to settle for, so I should tell you that generally speaking, the people did not, and it shocked me. I mean, it shocked me that that happens, and the majority of people were like, yeah, it stinks that happened, but you shouldn't get any money. I'm still to this day weirded out by it, but found out that there was some purchase with that argument by the gentleman at the end. And I think from a liability perspective, if we had gotten punitive damages, a lot of what the gentleman in the glasses said could have been used, deter future actions and so on and so forth. But again, I'd probe later, and people did not see it, on an individual claim basis as very valuable at all. Yeah.
How then did you approach and then sell the results of this or the takeaway from this to your client?
Well, in a class case, it's different because it was all principle for her. And she was really just a wonderful woman all around and didn't want any money and didn't need the money. And she always knew the money on it wasn't going to be anything life-changing. So I didn't really have to sell her at all. She's just whatever you want. But it certainly changed the way my position on the case was. That I initially had a much different take on my demand, what I thought the case was worth, what I thought these claims were worth, and after several focus groups that a lot of the people were like what you saw in the young ladies in this one, just people were not feeling the damages. And so I wound up settling for a lot less. I think it was the better decision. Yeah.
Do you find the sex of the participants matters?
In different cases.
Yeah. In relation to your client, like this was like you say, an elderly woman.
Yeah.
I don't know if she was elderly, but.
She was older.
Okay, an older plaintiff who was a nice person to walk into court with. I'm listening to the three females who were tough.
Yeah, real tough. Yeah. I would say yes, seemingly in that, but there was a lot of men of different ages that felt the same way. Okay. And
over your history of focus groups
I'm trying to think of like if there's any kind of demographics or kind of, I don't want to say stereotypes, but sort of things that I see in that regard. Because sometimes you'll hear like, you wouldn't, it goes both ways. You would want a female jury for a female plaintiff, or you wouldn't, there's different thoughts on that kind of stuff. Again, not particularly. I will say sometimes, and I don't know why, I do notice a trend in a given case that maybe a particular demographic, middle-aged men or middle-aged women seem to be the ones that are more frequently finding in my favor. And so I tuck that in the back of my head for purpose of jury selection, but I don't give it a ton of credence in that regard because it's so imperfect. And yeah, Larry.
What role did these people know who the defendant was? I mean,
yeah.
Did that play a role like UPMC? If that's the defendant, did they feel that they have a higher standard, a higher duty, or something like that?
No, I mean everybody agreed that they were negligent, and
Where's the defendant in the hospital?
It was actually like a GI group that had like several facilities. It wasn't UPMC, it wasn't AHN, it was like a side GI group. I I did not get the sense of one way or the other, at least on this particular case, oh, it's a smaller group, smaller, so, but, no, people were like, this shouldn't happen, and they screwed up and they're at fault, but we're not giving these people any money either. And on the UPMC thing, it's a complete mixed bag. When you have, for instance, the UPMC as a defendant, yet just like when you're trying to select in Allegheny County on med mal cases, and 75% of the people have some close affiliation with UPMC, it's all over the place. Some of them hate them, some of them love them, and everywhere in between. So I have yet to see one where like, we want to punish one of these big corporations just for the sake of it. Although I had a case with, one of those, the greatest name, or two cases where the greatest defendant names. One was Intertech was the defendant. It's like you can't have a better, and people did want to bury that company. And then recently I had a case where the parent company of this convenience store was the Graft Oil Company. And people literally were like, wait, what's the name of it? And then they're all laughing. They're like, oh my God, who would name it that? And then, so I made a point not to call it the Honey Bear at all during the trial. It's the Graft Oil Company is on trial here. So yeah, I mean, there's those components, but I didn't notice that. And generally speaking, I don't notice in focus groups people, not like across the board. You find the people that hate corporations. You find the other people that are pro-corporation. And you're always going to find a whole mix of those people. And then you're just back to the devil of jury selection and trying to find those people. They're out there. It's tough. Yeah.
Just back to nuts and bolts. Do you try to control confidentiality about this? And before you answer, it has to do with Erie being a small town. I had a friend whose firm had a very significant personal injury case against a deep pocket.
Yeah.
A partner in his firm was approached by two individuals who had been on two different either mock juries or focus groups and told him that my group awarded $11 million, my brother's group awarded $8 million.
Wow. Focus groups have presumably been run by the other side.
Yes.
Wow, that's crazy.
And it settled in between those numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you do, if anything, about confidentiality? And then, I guess this goes out to the group. Would doing a focus group in Allegheny County where the population is bigger and you'd have more confidentiality, would that be less beneficial for a jury trial?
Oh, meaning you went and did, so you went and did in Allegheny County as the case up here in Erie?
That would be the second part of the question.
Okay, so the first answer is, I always change the names of my clients. If it's UPMC or Allegheny General, I say that. I always change the individual names of the defendants. So if it's, Dr. Johnson, who's an anesthesiologist, I'll tell